For businesses around the world, today isn't a restart, it's a rethink. That's why they're partnering with IBM. Retailers are keeping their systems up as millions of orders move online. Call centers are using IBM Watson to manage customer questions with AI. And solutions built on the IBM cloud are helping patients receive trusted information. Today we're rethinking how business moves forwards. Let's put smart to work. Visit ibm.com/smart/UK to learn more. For businesses around the world, today isn't a restart, it's a rethink. That's why they're partnering with IBM. Retailers are keeping their systems up as millions of orders move online. Call centers are using IBM Watson to manage customer questions with AI. And solutions built on the IBM cloud are helping patients receive trusted information. Today we're rethinking how business moves forwards. Let's put smart to work. Visit ibm.com/smart/UK to learn more.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and as always we are joined by the amazing Kerry Greenaway and Richard Clements.
Still amazing.
Yeah, you're still amazing this week.
We are, still amazing.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Absolutely.
What's one up from amazing, Richard?
I don't know. Fantastic.
Stupendous.
Yeah, stupendous.
Yeah. I can go with that.
We'll have to aim for that next week.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll work on it. We'll work on it.
Yeah. So, how have you been this week?
I haven't been too bad, actually. I haven't really been out and about. I've done a little bit of work for you, Paul, early in the week, sort of went to a location, but that's enough said about that. But no, generally, I've set myself a task, actually. Off the back of a conversation us three had last night on Skype, I'm actually going to set out over the next couple of weeks and try and find an urban exploring location suitable for Kerry Greenaway.
Yeah, I agree.
It's quite difficult because I can't find an abandoned location with a roof on it, with central heating in it, with comfortable chairs, with tea and coffee.
Is that actually possible?
I don't know. And hot and cold and running water is a bit of a tricky one to find as well. But I will get there. Well,
good luck with that one. If anyone knows anyone anywhere, they can contact us through the website, which is... What's the website, Richard?
www.paranormalconcept.com.
Well done. Excellent. I thought I'd test you there.
And I've written a blog as well, which is in the process of being processed.
Being processed. I love that. Yeah.
Excellent. That should be out. I don't know. Is it today?
No, I think it's out next week. Early next week. Yeah.
That must mean I better get my finger out and get writing then. If Richard's one's gone up, it must mean that I'm due to do a blog.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. It's difficult for me to keep track sometimes.
I'm sure Paul will remind you, Kerry.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
And Richard, on the urban exploring front, I think you're looking for a hotel. Is actually what I think you're looking for there. But,
Well, visit the Stanley Hotel. I'll be all right there.
You never know.
That'd be a good one.
A bit far to go, though, really. Particularly at the moment.
So, Kerry, what have you been up to this week?
Oh, lots of lovely stuff. I have actually started writing 2 different blogs, but you know what I'm like. I'm such a butterfly that I start, don't finish, and then I move on. So, and then they're left in the archives of my Word documents for forever until I go, I was in the middle of writing that, and then go back to it about 3 years later. So, I am doing some research. I looked into EVPs after the back of last week's show a little bit. Found a heck of a lot of scepticism in regards to EVPs. But I want to look into the history a little bit more. But I did see that Living Life in Full Spectrum, Sarah Cimacero, has actually written a book on it. So I might just wait till she's released the book because she's a really great researcher. So I might just wait.
maybe we could get her on and talk about a book.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea because it is a subject that is very controversial. It does split the field quite a lot. So you either love them or hate them, EVPs. And there is a massive history about them. A lot of people have worked in this way and done a lot of research in this way. So, yeah, I'll get in contact with her, I think, and see if we can bring her on. Maybe get a sneaky peek before the book's released.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be
Because
awesome.
I did see that she'd written this book today, so it's due to be released. So I thought, maybe I'll just wait for that one. So, but that's one thing I will say. Whenever we come up with something, within our research that we don't get time to fully explore within a show, but it ticks that memory box, doesn't it, of, I must look into that. So EVP we spoke about last week on the show, and I thought, I know what it is, I know how to do it, I know a little bit of the history of it. I've read Steve Parsons' book, Ghostology, which has got part of electronic voice phenomena in there. But ultimately, I'm not that au fait with it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And whether or not it is a relevant, tool to use or not. And I do have trouble with that. And I thought to myself, so this leads me down rabbit holes. You know how my thought patterns go off in tangents.
Yeah.
I thought, in the quest to prove spirit, people have gone to endless lengths to create tech, to, go out in the field, to do some of the things we do. They go to a lot of lengths to get the results or think they get the results that they want to. So my question to you boys today is, how far would you go to get what you want?
Difficult one.
I tend to just go for a personal experience. I'm not that fussed about catching evidence. I just go out, investigate, and enjoy doing what I do. I mean, if I catch evidence on a voice recorder or a video recorder or something, absolutely fantastic. But I tend to go for my personal experiences, and that's just like on events and things like that.
All right, let me reframe the question then, or rephrase the question. How far would you go in life, in general, to get what you want? Would you go as far as making a deal with the devil?
No, I'm not that bothered.
If I was younger...
I'm not sort of... No, I wouldn't do that. That's probably going a little bit too far, I think.
If I was younger and more carefree and thought I'd live forever, which I did back then probably yes. But now, probably not. I'm a lot closer to that time of life, I feel.
Your mortality is creeping up on you, is it, Richard?
Yeah, that's right. It's started at the knees and it's working its way up slowly. So.
You're lucky. Mine's hit my hips,
Oh, dear.
As you're fully aware of. Walking across shingle beaches is not good for my hips, is all I'm saying.
No, it is.
Just had to clarify that one there. So, from my perspective, I don't think there's anything I would want enough to make a deal with the devil, in all honesty. If I can't achieve that through my own hard work and keep going at it, I don't think there's anything I would want enough to make a deal with the devil. If he come to me and said, you can have whatever you want, Kel, like the devil this is, obviously, whatever you want, all you got to do is sell me your soul, I'd go, can't actually think of anything I want that badly.
No, I mean, a lot of people would go for like immortality or something, but it's the devil. Well, just work same as God. The devil works in mysterious ways. It's not always what it says on the tin, if that makes sense.
I think the classic answer to that is sort of like the fame and fortune, isn't it? This is where it's usually sort of categorised as, or if somebody's really talented, and when other people observe it, and you can see why sort of like these sort of stories have sort of sprung up about certain individuals that may have sold their souls to the devil because they're just exceptionally talented and fortunate people.
No, what it usually is it seems to be that they're not particularly talented, then all of a sudden they become incredibly talented. That's the problem. Is, that's where those kind of stories come from, is when they weren't that great, and then all of a sudden they disappear for a little while, come back, and then they're really, really good. They take out the fact they might have worked really hard in that period of time to become really good. But who knows? I don't know. But this is what we're going to be looking at tonight, is deals with the devil. Now, first of all, the devil itself is, well, it's a mythological creature, isn't it? It's a mythological thing. It's not real. We can't prove it. Or can we? No, we can't prove it. But the tales of making deals with the devil goes across many different cultures, and it's interwoven with history and folklore and all sorts of things. And even to this day, you have tales of people that have made deals with the devil. You only got to look at, this has been quite relevant in the news recently, of the 27 Club. We're not going to look at the 27 Club tonight. We're going to do that another occasion, because that's fascinating in its own right. But we are going to have a look at some historical cases of deals with the devil. Now, when we say the word devil, boys, what's your perception of that?
Well, the word itself, devil, and to me it just conjures up the archetypal type devil, the Pan inspirated devil, sort of like red with horns, cloven hooves, and if you're lucky you get a little trident with it as well.
Ooh. Ooh.
and a tail
Tail, come on.
I say that's sort of like the normal stereotype for the devil, isn't it? That sort of image.
It's the goat face with the horns, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, because again of my faith, I've got a belief in God anyway, and I just see it as the opposite of God, the yin and the yang, and just to balance out life. That's how I see the devil. It's good versus evil, and it is literally just the opposite to balance everything out. You need balance, and that's for me what the devil represents.
Yeah, I suppose you need the good, and the good also needs the bad. So the devil there is to counterbalance the good, and it defines what is good and what is bad.
Yeah.
I get it.
And I do like to play devil's advocate on some of the shows, just to balance it out a bit.
Never.
Yeah, but it's not a bad thing to do, is it? Within every single person, we've got good and bad. It's embracing both sides of those. And they tend to say, like, the personification of those facets of personality are God and the devil, God and
I mean, even down to making decisions, you always look at the good and the bad, the pros and cons. There's always good and bad. It goes hand in hand. So it's just another just another word to describe the devil.
But it is totally wrapped up with belief systems. And as I say, even in religions, main religions, you've got this good and this bad, and this God and this, demon or devil or whatever, you want to put it on it.
Yeah.
Higher vibration, lower vibration, and it is all about that balance. But people have been said to connect to this energetic form that is known as the devil and made a deal with them in order to fulfill certain requirements or achievements, you'd like to call it, within the physical life, within their physical life. How true is that? Is that them just tapping into the lower vibrations so they become more selfish, they become more out for self-gain, they don't care, they don't what other people think, they just get on and do it, and no matter who they hurt or whatever in the process, because these things aren't nice qualities, we're not taught to be selfish beings. We're taught to be caring and compassionate and empathic and giving. Those are the qualities that are encouraged and expected, in our lives, in our day-to-day lives, this is. Whereas, if you are more self-serving and selfish and whatnot, yes, it seems to get you results, but does it really bring you the rewards? And at what cost? Can you live with your own conscience if you do that to somebody else?
I mean, couldn't it also be sort of like a mindset? Because obviously you think you've sold yourself to the devil, and basically all you've done is put your thoughts out into the cosmos, and the cosmos has supplied it.
That's a possibility, isn't it? It is a psychological possibility. Having worked in certain ways, all I can say is I know I had an energy signature, we'll call it that resonated with what I was trying to achieve. And off the back of that, things did happen. That's the only thing I can say to that. It was very strange how that situation happened. It was incredibly... I can't say it was my psychological mindset that affected the reality, because I wasn't in contact with the person at the time that I was doing the work for. Whole different story, everybody, is all I can say on that one. I can't really go into it because it was, it's personal. But at the end of the day, at the time, I wasn't in contact with that person yet. Looking from a distance, social media is an amazing thing. It looks like things all of a sudden turned a massive U-turn change for that person. So was that just coincidence? Possibly, I don't know. It felt very strange, the timing of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly an interesting one.
But then it's the same as putting out your intention out there and the cosmos supplying. And again, that's a whole new religion in itself, isn't it?
It is a whole different concept, isn't it? Because it's not an entity then you're dealing with, it's just universal.
It's an energy, isn't it?
It's still an energy, but it's a grand scheme energy rather than a specific entity energy.
And this is what I was getting at, sort of when I said like God, I look at God and I envisage energy. So I would thought, the devil would be another type of energy just to balance everything out. So your thoughts and that, your intentions will go up into the cosmos, whether it's another energy form that picks it up. And yeah, it just delivers it, doesn't it?
Some of the cases, though, we've looked at have been incredibly interesting, I would say. You can look at this in many different ways. And, it is one of those that I do think your belief system has a huge effect on how you conduct your life. I think your mindset is a massive part of that. I do believe that. And that's to do with you and the work you do within yourself, recognising certain things and working on those so you can change yourself. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah,
they say a leopard can't change its spots. No, it can, if it wants to. It takes work, but you can do it. So, anyway.
Even through like all the civilizations, I mean, even I think it was Norse, wasn't it, that had no, it wasn't Hades.
It was Greek, Hades.
Greeks, yeah, the Greeks had Hades, which was the underworld, and the devil. That was sort of their devil. There's civilizations in jungles that haven't mixed with the Western civilization, and they still have a religious background to them, and God and the devil.
Good and bad, yeah.
Yeah, so it's. I think it's more of a theological.
Yeah, well, I certainly don't believe that the devil is a separate entity to, if you put it down to sort of like God or whatever. I believe in the universal energy. If there is such a thing which we tap into, is amoral. It's neither good nor bad.
It's how you direct the intention.
Yes, it's your intentions and how you use it. So the devil is in us as opposed for it to being a total separate entity from something else. I mean, that's how I tend to look at it.
Well, let's have a little look at Saint Theophilus, the Penitent, or otherwise known as...
I'm looking forward to this because there's some really difficult words for you, Karen.
Starting with the name Theophilus. He is also known as Theophilus of Adana, or Adana, and he was an archdeacon, which is actually part of the modern Turkey, apparently. Nice bloke. Everyone liked him. He was unanimously elected to be a bishop, but actually turned down that position out of humility. Right? So he's like, oh no, I couldn't possibly. Thanks
Very
everybody,
nice.
but I can't. Right, but another man was actually elected in his stead. Now, when the new bishop unjustly deprived Theophilus, now this point, just on this point, he turns it down, and then everyone says he was unjustly deprived, but he turned it down. So how could he have been unjustly deprived?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Perhaps that was more on hindsight that people would sort of like looking back.
what did he want them to do? Beg? You know, you turned us down, mate. And he regretted his decision. He regretted out his humility. I mean, I was going to say that maybe there's a little bit of arrogance there in Theophilus, because maybe,
yeah.
Just a tad.
yeah, maybe because like this poor bloke that did get his position. Well, maybe just because he wasn't quite so humility. He didn't have so much humility, should I say? That he said he went, he nicked my position. You turned it down. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just a point when I read
Someone
this.
had to do it.
Yeah, right? Anyway, he regretted it. He regretted turning it down and sought out a wizard. Of course you do. You go to a wizard to help you.
Gandalf, are you in?
Gandalf the Grey, enter the room. To help him contact Satan, right? So he's gone, oh, I really regret this. So the logical assumption then is not to discuss it with anybody. He then goes to a wizard to contact Satan. Your belief system here is like, not go to your God and pray to be
Nope.
the archdeacon. It's to go to the opposite side and go, no, I think made a bit of a mistake, God. You know, made a bit of a mistake, Mr. Devil. Can you help me out?
Go
Now-
for the
Went
quick
to the dark
fix.
side.
Oh no, he went over to the dark side. In exchange for his aid, Satan demanded that Theophilus renounced Christ and the Virgin Mary in a contract signed with his own blood. Now, Theophilus is allegedly complied with this, and the devil gave him the position as a bishop. Nice, right? Thanks, Satan. Thumbs
All
up.
done and
Gave the
dusted.
job they didn't want to do.
Yeah, which you turned down in the first place. See, when you think logically, you think, oh, don't be so stupid.
Yeah.
It's just a tale of, what's the word, a warning tale. But
Yeah.
his belief in Christ and the Virgin Mary, he had to renounce. But he couldn't have been that, I don't know, faithful that to give it up quite easily on something he'd already turned down. It just, none of this makes sense to me.
It doesn't
Exactly,
be-
and he was given the position of bishop. Bishop of what? He's renounced God and Jesus and all that. So
And
what's he the bishop of?
I think
Yeah.
he only renounced it to Satan. I don't think he came out publicly and went, that's it, I'm done with you lot now.
But you would have thought to be a bishop or an archdeacon, belief in the Virgin Mary and God, and would have been a prerequisite
Ah, but
for the job.
He would have had to have faked it, I think, on this one.
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. I think he might have been doing that anyway, quite frankly. Because his faith in God wasn't that strong that he would eventually
Well,
get what he
no.
wanted, was it? Now, years later, he feared for his soul, and Theophilus repented and prayed, finally, to the Virgin for forgiveness. He fasted for 40 days, and the Virgin appeared to him. Point. Fasting means you don't eat, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Or you eat minimal at a certain time of day.
Yeah, it's usually you fast during the daylight hours, I think, is usually the practice.
So kind of we can kind of go with the fact that he's a very hungry man,
Very.
possibly a little dehydrated.
Yes.
Starts having visions of the Virgin Mary appearing to him. And
Well, you never know. She might have actually been there.
well, you don't know. Yeah, I know I'm being very cynical.
And apparently she wasn't
I've
too
not
happy,
noticed
was she?
that yet.
She wasn't happy. She verbally chastised him a lot.
Yeah.
Now, Theophilus begged for forgiveness. And
I can imagine that. It's a case of you're a very, very naughty boy. You're not the Messiah. You're a naughty boy.
Oh, dear. Now, Theophilus begged for forgiveness and Mary promised to intercede with God. So, basically,
Go and have a
probably
word.
go and have a word in God's ear and, say, I'll give him another chance. He then fasted for a further 30 days, at which time the Virgin Mary appeared to him again. 70 days of fasting so far. You've got to give them credit, these people that do these fasts. I can't last 12 hours.
That's probably what some of us can do with doing and after the lockdown. I mean, a good 70-day fast.
I totally agree with that. Definitely been into gluttony in the lockdown. She actually granted him absolution on this occasion. So he's fasted for 70 days. He's proved he's very repentant for the decision he made. And Mary was like, yeah, God's going to absolve you from your sin of making this deal with the devil, and it's all going to be good, right? But Satan wasn't very happy with that. Satan was like, no, I've got this in contract, in blood. I am not very happy. It's a contract.
Yeah.
Sorry, you've had your 14 days cooling off period. I don't think so.
Yeah. Read the small print.
So anyway, there was obviously arguments going on in the background in the hierarchy of gods and devils and demons and whatever you want to call them. And it was a further 3 days before Theophilus awoke to find the damning contract on his chest. He then took the contract to the legitimate bishop, confessed everything that he'd done. Now, the bishop allegedly burnt the document, and then Theophilus passed away, apparently, out of sheer joy. Not the fact that he hadn't been eating for 70 days, and he's probably died of starvation, but because he was ecstatic that he had finally broken this deal with the devil. Didn't do him any favours, though, because he died.
No, what a palaver to go through.
I know, when all you could have done is just prayed to God in the first place, and probably would have ended up getting what you wanted anyway.
Well, yeah, perseverance then wins the day, surely.
Yeah.
There are lots of variations of this story, though, I found, though, to be fair. Sometimes, well, this is typical, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is sort of like it does follow a lot of points, and you will see these sort of points echoed in other sorts of tales, won't you?
It seems like it's one of those, what's one of those stories that's got a message in it?
A morality tale?
Yeah, maybe.
Moral story, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe it's one of those for people, and it's not actually, a true account. I mean, we've got no physical proof. This is just a story, and
there's nothing to say what happened to him afterwards.
Well, he died.
He died.
Yeah, but did he go to heaven or hell?
Well, only he would know that because we can't talk to spirits. Remember?
Oh, well, I don't know. We do that on the KT meters and the Ouija boards.
Maybe we should try and conjure up Theophilus and see his side of the story.
Well, we were talking about EVPs earlier, so let's get the tape recorder out.
Maybe. Well, the obvious thing is jealousy.
Yes.
That's his motivation, is jealousy, because he wasn't given the pot, but he did turn it down, so be careful. If you want something, accept it if it's offered to you. Don't go, oh, no. And then when it's given to somebody else, go, that was mine. You go, no, I turned that down. Do you know what I mean?
And perhaps he wasn't too enamoured with the person they did choose.
Doesn't matter. You take responsibility for your own actions, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what the outcome comes, if you've decided to turn something down or not get yourself involved in something or lose an opportunity because of something, that's on you. Not on, that's on you if that's your decision to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not on anybody else. So firstly, take responsibility for your own actions and don't be jealous because that is your action, not anybody else's. But the moral of this tale is he's contacted the devil, pure jealousy, because he did actually want the position. You know what I mean? Now, as I say, there are variations, and it does change depending on where you read the story from. The wizard, magician person is sometimes referred to as a Jew, which actually brings in a subcontext of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, it would do, yeah.
Which is not nice.
No.
Right? Sometimes the magician isn't there at all, and Theophilus conjures up the devil all by himself.
As you do.
That's as you do. That's another variation. Now, he repents the day after he makes the deal, as the bishop apologises to him, and then Mary appears once Theophilus begins to pray. So there are variations on how long he was fasting for, who made the deal, how he made the deal, that the bishop who took his position apologised to him. There's lots of different variations on this story, but the basics are, as we've outlined, he made a deal with the devil, got the position he wanted to, repented his sins, reaffirmed his faith, basically, and then dies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a beginning, middle, and end there, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Which kind of
perfect story.
It does, exactly. It kind of just makes it a perfect moral story.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that the story that I found on this one missed out was that apparently he got great wealth as well, along with the position, which is hardly surprising. We are dealing with the church on this one. Right? It is, it was, not so much these days, but back in the day, it was a very wealthy position to be in. And that when he died, all of that wealth got distributed to the poor.
At least something could come out of it.
If that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But as I say, because of so many variations, you can't pin it down. As I say, it just sounds like a morality tale, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I agree.
But these stories, like a lot of stories in the Bible, do have that theme of morality running through it, of how you should live your life, and they're examples of how you should, go to your higher vibration rather than your lower vibration. Don't walk past somebody who's in need, and, have faith in yourself as much as God. You will achieve it. And actually, if you want an opportunity, just take it. If it's offered to you, just take it. Don't be have humility. If you want it,
because there'll be someone else there in the background and ready to take it for you.
Exactly. It will do it for we'll go, hell yeah, I'll have that, thanks.
Exactly. Yeah. And I have no regrets.
No regrets. Exactly.
No regrets.
Whereas you might be the one left regretting you didn't take that opportunity.
Yeah.
So that was the first deal with the devil. Old story, that one. So let's jump forward in time. Now, I know this is something Richard has been looking into, which is Giuseppe Tartini.
Oh, yes, good old Giuseppe, yes. I actually forwarded you a piece of music, and it's actually this very piece, which is allegedly he dreamt up in a dream, I believe, Kerry.
Quite possibly.
Okay.
Anybody else want to add to it? Or shall I carry on?
Yeah, you carry on.
I thought Richard was going to do it because he looked all into it.
I know, so did I. Well, he was an Italian Baroque composer, violinist and music theorist. He actually was incredibly prolific. This is what I would class as pure musical genius.
It's a prodigy of some sort, wasn't he?
Exactly. He apparently had an outstanding technique, and his style of bowing proved to be highly influential for generations going on of violinists. So he's an icon in the violinist world for his repertoire and his style, is what he is. Now, he's mostly remembered for his Sonato in G minor, which is Trillo del Diavola. Devil's Trill, basically.
Oh,
Devil's Trill.
Now this is why Richard wanted you to carry on.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Probably.
Sussed him now.
Oh, I know, right? The exact date of when he wrote this is actually uncertain, but they reckon it was between 1713 to late 1740. It's an incredibly demanding piece of work. Even now, not that it makes any difference, because playing a violin is a bit beyond my skill. But the violin is actually quite a hard instrument to play, isn't it?
Yes, I've actually had a go on one. Well, and I can't see how people can actually play them. And I can understand sort of people looking at violinists in a sort of way of sort of higher regard as for being skillful musicians.
Yeah, I can play the violin.
But can you play it well? Can you
I
play
play
it
all
well,
the right
Paul?
notes. I play all the right notes, just not in the right order.
And I have to say, it's one of those instruments where anyone can pick it up and like bow it, but to make it sound good is a skill. Because whenever I've had to go, it's just sounded like a cat fight going on. It's not actually been anything decent.
You play all the right notes, just not in the right order.
Or in the right sound. It just doesn't work. So to be a good violinist, there is a definite talent to it. There is a definite skill to it. And it's one of the hardest instruments, I think, to actually play. That's what I believe. I don't know if that's true, but from going back in my musical days.
From your point of view.
I think stringed instruments in general are probably the more demanding instruments to actually learn.
Well, this piece of, this concerto that he made, or whatever it's, or sonata, sorry, that he composed, I'm trying to use the right terminology here, is, as like I said, it's incredibly challenging. The sonata is characterised by reoccurring double stops, which is basically playing on two adjacent strings at the same time, next to several challenging runs and trills. I bet if you got that piece of music in front of you, you'd be like, oh my God, what the hell is that? And I don't think it's slow either. I don't think it's played. I think it's fast.
Yeah, most of them are.
It starts off quite slowly, but then, because I was actually listening to the piece earlier, but then it does sort of build up throughout the piece. It's about a 16-minute piece of music, which I will actually post up on the Paranormal Concept Facebook page when the show goes out, and people can judge for themselves.
I would imagine it's one of those where you think, oh, this is okay, as you're playing it, this is. And then by the end of it, you were exhausted, dripping in sweat, and thinking, thank God I got to the end of that. Oh, dear. Now, legend has it, Tartini was inspired to compose the sonata after the devil appeared to him in a dream. It was a particularly an intense, magnificent violin even performance. So in his dream, he's got the devil playing this piece of music, and he's written the piece of music from that. Now, this is, when I looked at Mozart years ago, I remember reading a piece who said that he heard the music before he put it down. So as he's writing the music, he's hearing it.
Right, yeah.
So for the great composers, it wasn't sort of like, oh, I think that note sounds good next to that note. They actually kind of heard the music before they knew what they were going to write. Do you know what I mean? This is quite a common thing with composers.
Well, you think, well, I suppose the ultimate in that would be Beethoven, because he was deaf. So he's renowned for composing some of the best music of his time. So yes, he must have had it all in his head. Admittedly, he did know what music sounded like, because he went progressively dead over time. Deaf.
You had a lot more music then to choose from.
What?
You had a lot more music to choose from. It was easier back then to create a masterpiece.
No, I disagree with that. I think you've got more choice now.
No, now you've got billions of songs now. Where back then you didn't have the quantity of music.
Yeah, and the only way you would have actually experienced music is to go and see it performed live. I mean,
yeah, I suppose, yeah.
There was no recording back then, so it would have been done through recitals and going to concerts.
Oh, okay. Well, this story of Tartini comes from a French astronomer and writer called Jérôme Lalande, who apparently Tartini had told his vision, I suppose, or his dream too. And Lalande actually put it in his story, the travel memoir, Voyage d'un François en Italie, Fête dans les années. Whatever the heck that means. It's a travel memoir, everybody.
Right.
Very exciting. Tartini dreamt one night in 1713 that he made a compact with the devil, who promised him to be at his service on all occasions. And during this vision, everything succeeded according to his mind. In short, he imagined he gave the devil his violin in order to discover what kind of musician he was, when to his great astonishment he heard him play a solo, so singularly beautiful and executed with such superior taste and precision that it surpassed all he had ever heard or conceived in his life. So great was his surprise and so exquisite his delight upon this occasion that it deprived him of the power of breathing. There's a dream you want, isn't it?
Sleep apnea or what?
Yeah.
Well, he was so inspired by this solo that the devil had played in his dream that he attempted to recreate what he witnessed. And he said he awoke with the violence of his sensation and instantly seized his fiddle in hopes of expressing what he had just heard. But in vain. He, however, then composed a piece, which is perhaps the best of all his works. He called it the Devil Sonata. But it was so inferior to what his sleep had produced that he declared he should have broken his instrument and abandoned music forever if he could have subsisted by any other means. Oh!
So he couldn't give up the day job in the end.
No, not really.
No.
Not really. But it is an incredibly difficult piece. It's very technically difficult. And obviously, because it's called the Devil Sonata, what a great way of selling it.
Yeah.
I've made this really hard piece. It's like my perfect creation. It's nowhere near what I originally had in my head, but I've done the best I can. I'm going to call it the Devil Sonata. Devilishly difficult.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Several myths and rumours ensued over the years with this composer, and basically he was a bit batty.
Well, yeah, I suppose really talented musicians do sort of border on the edge, don't they? They tread a very fine line.
They do.
Wasn't it even suggested that he had an extra finger?
Yeah. Yeah, which, you know, it wasn't Anne Boleyn supposed to have an extra finger as well, and that's one of the reasons they called her a witch.
Yes, that's right, yeah. I believe in Man and Two Swords she's depicted with a extra finger on her waxwork effigy as well. But not too sure how true that story is. But
no, I don't know. But apparently sometimes, like, you know, the sleeves, the long sleeves covered the hands. I believe that was because that fashion was partly because it hid her condition. There is a medical term for that, Paul. Do you know what that is?
No, but I can look it up.
It's polydactylism.
That's the one.
Ah, polydactylism.
It was on the tip of my tongue.
It sounds like a Jurassic parrot, doesn't it? If you think
it does a bit, doesn't it?
Polydactylism. Oh dear.
That tickled her.
Oh, dear. Now, he's not the only violinist, old Tartini. He's not the only violinist that's supposed to have made a deal with the devil. There is another one in 1782 in Genoa, in Italy, Nicola Paganini. Paganini.
And he was aged 13, bless him.
He was only young when he started. It's a bit of a child prodigy, this one.
Yeah, this one's the classic child prodigy, isn't it?
He was sent to study with famous violinist and teacher Alessandro Rolla. We'll just call him Rolla. He saw Paganini's talent and decided that there was nothing he could teach him. So he actually passed him back to his own teacher, Ferdinando Paia, who then referred him to his own teacher, Gasparo Giretti.
This sounds like a grand case of pass to parcel here.
Yeah. You don't know what to do with him, have him.
He's either that good that they think, I literally can't teach you anything, so I'll pass you on to who taught me. He says he's beyond, he's gone as far as I could teach him, pass him back to somebody else. It does seem a bit like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is pure, unadulterated, natural talent with an instrument, I feel.
Yeah.
Yes, he certainly sounds like perhaps he would have had a savant qualities. You get them.
Well, by the age of 15, wasn't it? He was doing solo tours, and at that point he had a nervous breakdown and turned to alcohol. So he was an alcoholic as well.
Yeah, I think, though, you think, right?
15.
At 15. Exactly. Yeah, but think of the pressure. There's one thing performing your instrument to that high standard in front of your friends and family or the teacher or whoever. But then to go out and do a solo career, the pressure that puts on you, you may not be able to cope with that side, but all you want to do is play your instrument. And you're not emotionally, if you're practicing your instrument, your violin, I'm going to say, because the instrument just sounds a little bit pervy. If you're playing your violin for that amount of time per day that you're that good, which you must be doing, you don't get that good. No, even if you're a child prodigy, you don't get that good by not playing a lot per day. Maybe he's not emotionally equipped to deal with the accolades that comes with.
And I don't believe it was possibly his choice at the age of 15. He would have had a lot of pressure on him to perform. There was probably a lot of people in the background that had a lot of invested interests in sending him on tour and sort of just working him.
Well, you can imagine you've got 3 teachers and famous violinists in their own right who have decided that they can't teach him anything that he doesn't already know. And then what do you do with them? You put them out on display, as it were. Look at this talent. Well, and it's a great selling point. He's only young. He's only like 50.
But then he was also a victim of trolls as well, wasn't he? He was also a victim of trolls, I reckon, because apparently there was a rumour spread that he had murdered a woman and used her intestines as violin strings and imprisoned her soul within the instrument, because apparently women's screams were said to be heard from his violin when he performed on stage. So no wonder he had a nervous breakdown, if that's the sort of things that said about him.
Yeah, but he's right. So we're getting a bit older in all of this. So he's got alcoholism. He's a heavy gambler. He's a serial womanizer. He basically is all the base things that you wouldn't expect from someone so talented and so amazing to be. There's a lot of jealousy going to be surrounding him. He's got everything.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, not being funny, but then if the trolls out there were accusing him of murder, is he really the person that you want to annoy?
No.
No, probably not.
I mean, he was that skilled. He was that skilled. This is probably the jealousy regarding this person was probably absolutely unfounded, because he was the first solo violinist to perform publicly without sheet music. He memorised it all. It was all up there. So for another famous violinist who, I've got my sheet music, someone to turn my sheet for me while I'm playing, and all this, and then he comes along and just blows you out the water. You must be going, I hate that person. Do you know what I mean? I literally hate him. And his skill was unparalleled, apparently.
And to commit everything to memory, again, as I sort of said at the start of this sort of piece, I mean, there's certainly a savant quality there. He must have been on the spectrum somewhere.
Definitely.
And not actually particularly likeable, because he's an alcoholic, he's a womanizer, he's a heavy gambler. Do you know what I mean? None of those things make you particularly likeable. He seems to have everything, Now, he was particularly known for his fiendish, I love that word, the use of that word, fiendish.
I love the way they write this stuff,
24 caprices for solo violin. And he actually helped to popularise certain string techniques, such as bow bounces, called spiccata. As well as left-handed pizzicato and harmonics. So basically, he took what the other one did.
Yeah, and...
Panini. No, not Panini. What was his name? Tartini. He took what Tartini did, then took it to another level.
Absolutely.
He was supposed to play 12 notes per second.
Wow. Which is going some. That is going some.
it's when you look at this skill. I mean, I'm no violinist, as I say, but even I've listened to some of these pieces, and I'm thinking, jeepers, do you know what I mean? You can't deny the skill and talent that it takes to play that. And he's a young man at this point, but he looks the part of somebody who's not that. I don't know what's the word. He looks the part for somebody who might have done a deal with the devil.
Yeah, I don't think he was very appealing to look at, was he? He was sort of like a bit odd.
Well, he's hollow cheeks, pale skin, thin lips. He was tall and thin. He liked to dress in black. He had very long, thin fingers, which, not being funny, that's probably a good plus point for playing the violin, right? Because you can, because you've got the stretch, which probably was maybe one of the reasons why he was so good at what he did. His memory obviously was astonishing because he could memorise these massive pieces of sheet music, and he used to move a lot about on stage because he wasn't restricted by sheet music. He could do what he wanted on stage, so that his nickname was the Rubber Man.
I can imagine him like launching himself into the mosh pit playing his violin and being handed over above the crowd.
Don't kind of think they had the mosh pit back then, but if that's where your memory's going.
Just trying to put a modern twist on it. Crowd surfing.
That would be fun.
Now they've looked at him and they think that he had Mafine Syndrome, which is a genetic disorder, which is to do with the finger length, the unusual finger length that he had. And they reckon he could play 3 octaves with one hand.
Right.
Right, so that's really long fingers. But that is Mafine Syndrome.
He could have also had was it hyper-elasticity or something?
Ehlers-Danlos.
Yeah, where they can do unusual things with their joints and stuff on it.
They can. It does have a lot of other problems, though, Ehlers-Danlos. So it does make me wonder if that's just... I don't know, because I suppose there are levels of that. But, yeah, they have really weird things they can do with their joints. It's beyond double-jointedness. They're super flexible. But they do lack coordination, which, when he's playing, could account for why he's flopping around all over the place, if you know what I mean, like rubbery.
Yeah.
So there are maybe physical conditions that he had that sort of, helped along the way, as it were. Now, the violin...
Or he could have just sold his soul to the devil.
Or he could have just sold his soul to the devil. But the violin does tend to be the devil's instrument. That's well known, isn't it? A stringed instrument for the devil.
Well, yes. Yeah, it's sort of it's one of the principal instruments that is associated. I mean, you look at old reliefs and stuff, and the Dalek and the devil is actually depicted with a violin. So, yeah, there was certainly a connection there.
Ticking a lot of boxes. It's got rumours of a murder, and the strings are being played on dead people's sinews. He looks the part. He's physically abnormal in some way. Even if it's not an obvious deformity, it's different. You're different, and he's got this outstanding talent.
Well, what I've noticed, sort of going through this, that this is more of a... They seem to be implying, it's people implying to him that sort of like a story's grown around him, because he does not appear to have actually come out and actually said he sold his soul to the devil. It seems to be something that people have attributed to him, as opposed to the story actually coming from him.
But somebody did say, or thought they'd seen, the devil help him Paganini play. And then soon, all of a sudden, every time he played... There were, doppelgangers of Paganini with horns and hooves everywhere. It only takes one person to say it, and then catches the imagination of the masses, and that's it, isn't it?
I think it's almost like a rave today, because it sounds like everyone was on drugs back then.
They probably overdid it on the absinthe before they went into the concert hall.
I was going to say, when you look at their living conditions and certain things that they were inhaling or doing, maybe you might
they were definitely on something.
You might not be too far from the truth there, Paul. Because it was even said once that the devil made lightning strike the end of Paganini's bow during a performance.
Of course he did.
Of course he did.
This is
It
all,
couldn't have been.
you're
Couldn't
looking
have been the fact that he was playing in a lightning storm, could it?
Yeah.
I was going to say, we don't know the conditions under that was, but it's possible that he was outside performance, it was a thundery
Yeah.
night, and it...
If it happened
Just,
at all, which I very much doubt, this part seems to be sort of being taken over by the hack journalists of the day to sell a good story.
Are you telling me that was fake media?
Oh,
Richard?
quite possibly.
No, don't be daft. Don't do that sort of thing.
What? Are you telling me the media lies to us, Richard?
Oh, well, no, I wouldn't sort of level that against him. He said.
Now, he wasn't a well man. He was sickly for much of his later life. He actually contracted syphilis in 1822. His womanising days caught up with him.
Finally caught up with him. And yes,
he was
the mercury.
Yeah, he was treated with mercury, which obviously led to further health problems. God.
Oh, dear.
Then in 1834, he caught tuberculosis, recovered from that, but then found himself just getting weaker and weaker. I mean, I think his body was just going, enough already, come on now. And if he had all those other health conditions when he was younger, like, the elos and the other one that he had, then his body's not particularly strong anyway, right?
No. He sounds like he's quite a sickly child back then.
Well, he retired from public performance aged 54 and then went on to teach. He ended up dying of larynx cancer on the 27th of May in 1840 in Nice, even. He turned away the last rites. Didn't want the last rites before his death.
Right.
And he said he was said to have turned them down because he didn't think he was going to die.
Oh, okay.
But this led to further rumour that, it's because he's in league with the devil. That's why he didn't want the last rites.
Damn that Beelzebubbles.
Now, the church then, because he refused his last rites, refused to bury his body on consecrated ground, even though he was a member of the Order of the Golden Spur. His corpse, this is funny, he went on tour, even when he was dead. For the next 4 years. 4 years.
Yeah, his music was rubbish, though, on that tour.
He went on a tour of Europe, basically, and his embalmed body was left on his deathbed in Nice for 2 months before it was transferred to the cellar of the house, where it was then left for over a year. I mean,
what are we going to do with him? Put him in the cell.
This reminds me of Ava Peron's body. She was transported here, there and everywhere after she died as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's quite an interesting story in itself. And so, obviously, Paganini had the same sort of venture after his death.
Yeah. His local church refused to bury him. He was put into a leper house, then moved to a cement vat in an olive oil factory. He went to a private house in Nice. 4 years after his death, Pope Gregory the something, XV1, whatever that is.
XV1,
16?
12th, I think, or something.
I thought that was 16.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, possibly.
He allowed the body to be transported to Genoa, and he was finally laid to rest in La Villetta Cemetery in Parma in Italy. That's 200 kilometres away from his birthplace in Genoa.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was well travelled, that body, because even, it was left in the cellar, wasn't it? And then, because the church refused to bury him, the body was taken to an abandoned leper house, and then it was taken to a cement vat in an olive oil factory. And then he was moved to a private house near Nice. And then Pope Gregory got hold of him and said, like, we'll lay you to rest now.
Yeah, I mean...
He was well travelled, that bloke.
He probably had them all.
I think that demonstrates, though, the fear factor in, well, he was in league with the devil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're not going to bury him on consecrated ground because he was in league with the devil. And isn't this where rumour overlooks...
Common sense.
That's the word. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Common sense. But,
yeah.
Belief system is a huge, amazingly wonderful thing for people, and
it is strong.
It is incredibly strong, and if that belief system is there, there's not a lot you can do to change it within people. Now, remember, back in those days, religion was incredibly strong in people, and you're fighting against the masses, aren't you? You know, no matter how many times you say, no, he wasn't in league with the devil, they're not going to believe it, because the rumour mongering and the mythology around this man had already spread throughout his career, had followed him. He'd probably utilised that. He'd probably used that as a way of marketing it. He probably packed audiences out because people wanted to see the devil, quite frankly.
Well, yes.
It kind of played against him in death.
Yes, it's like that still public fascination actually drove sort of what happened to him, and after his death, there's probably still sort of like a public sort of thing saying, no, he can't be buried in consecrated ground, you know, and the church was still wondering what to do with him.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years, as it turns out. 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely incredible, though, we've looked at 3 cases. One pure, you know, morality tale, we believe. The second one of Tartini, who, you know, allegedly wrote the Devil Sonata. He's not allegedly, he did write it. But that came to him in a dream. And then this guy that is supposed to be in league with the devil, to be amazing, how good, you know, it's almost like you can't be that good, talented, without being in league with the devil. It's like talent is a negative thing almost, you know, rather than God, it's a God-given talent. It's not. It's got to be in league with the devil, because nobody could be that good.
Well, yeah. Plus, the church at the time would consider music, wouldn't it, a bit of a devil's sort of thing, you know, with its connection with dancing and stuff like that, which was very looked down upon.
Well, that's why hymns are so dirty.
That's right.
Even like the 50s and 60s, when music started turning to like rock and roll, and you had like Jerry Lee Lewis playing music, they actually referred it to as the devil's music.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was played a lot with the black community, and it was deemed the devil's music, and that was very frowned upon at the time.
Already have a podcast? It's time to join Spreaker's monetization program, the easiest way to profit from your passion starting on day one. You decide which episodes and exactly where you want the ads to be inserted, and Spreaker takes care of the rest. If you're not on Spreaker, it's easy to import your podcast in just a few clicks, and then you can monetize your older episodes too. For 1 free month on a pro account, visit Spreaker.com/monetize. That's SPREAKER.com/monetize to join and start making money today.
Now we just love it.
Well, it birthed a whole new way of cultural society acceptance, didn't it? Anyway, on that note, we're actually going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to have a look at why the violin or stringed instrument is actually supposed to be the devil's instrument, and have a look to see if there's actually any proof, maybe, of the devil. Be right back after this.
Hello, Harry Price here. If there's nothing me and my friends enjoy more here on the other side, it is to sit back and relax and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show, right here on the PAUK Radio Network. Broadcasting a plethora of interesting and informative content for all your paranormal needs. Find them across social media to keep up to date with forthcoming shows and all their other adventures. Hello, is there anybody there?
And welcome back to the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Now, before the break, we had a look at a couple of stories where people were supposed to be in league with or made deals with the devil. And 2 of those stories linked into violins, stringed instrument. So he's often depicted with a violin, isn't he, the devil?
Yes, I mean, you certainly sort of look at sort of contemporary sort of artwork, medieval art and stuff like that. Yes, it's usually some sort of instrument he has, and it usually is a form of stringed instrument, principally a violin, yes.
So it made me wonder, did make me have a little think. I was thinking, why? Why is the devil the instrument of the devil? Of all the instruments in all the world, why does it have to be? Because actually, it's quite a late instrument. I would expect it to be more of like a flute or a Pan's pipe or something like that more than a violin.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't attribute that sort of, and you would have thought they would have done, but I think it's to do with the introduction of stringed instruments into Europe during the 15th century from the Far East, no less. Ooh.
The violin, as we know it, wasn't actually developed until the mid-1500s by Italian craftsmen like Amati or Gasparo de Salo.
Mm-hmm.
They actually created the first ones. Now, because it actually had Eastern origins, well, God, they're evil over there, right?
Yeah, the heathen.
God,
Yeah.
they're all heathens, and they're like associated with the evil, and oh my God. So basically that's why. And also there was a perception that they were more embracing of their sexual side. They're very uninhibited. Their way of living, their culture was so different from the stiff looking, the Europeans, the inhibited, I think is the word, Europeans.
Well, yes.
They were uninhibited in the East. So those Oriental eroticism, because of cultural differences, gave it, it's bad, it's awful, rather than, no, it's just a different way of living, but it was viewed with it's a evil thing. Evil, I say. It actually took the medieval Christian church condemning dance as a path to hell. You shouldn't enjoy dance,
Nope.
that actually started to get this link between the devil and the violin. Actually, in the 4th century, St. John Chrysostom.
Yes,
Oh,
I'll
these
go with that.
blinking names, I tell you.
Well, he proclaimed something anyway.
He proclaimed, where dance is found, there is devil. Now, music has always been integral to Christian worship, but they were always vocal compositions.
Yes.
They weren't. They weren't musical, like musical instruments. They were always
and we
sung.
still, yeah, you've got the classic Gregorian chants and stuff, and I suppose the later sort of like development, even though it does have a musical accompaniment, is hymns. You sing when you go to church, don't you? You don't dance.
Well, would you want to some of the hymns? I've never wanted to get up and start doing a jig to a hymn in a church or a Gregorian chant. They're not the music. That kind of music, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, is not about dancing and enjoyment and pleasure. It is about worship and faith and praise to God. That's what you're doing.
That's right.
You're
vocalising it.
Yes. You know what I mean? In that way, rather than the pleasurable side of music. It's two totally different things. And so the church frowned on this kind of music. They just didn't like it because they said it encourages dance, and that dance is bad. Dance is bad. I kind of want to go into Footloose right now because that's kind of the basis of that film, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, and you can see it's also the church would have seen it as very pagan as well. It's sort of something you do associate a lot with pagan sort of traditions and stuff, isn't it? It's dance and festivity.
Well, it's also, think about the people that would have used that kind of thing beyond the concert halls and amazing performers. You would have seen them travelling with a violin. It's easy, it's lightweight, it's easy to transport. You know, there's the fable tellers and the storytellers and the gypsies would carry around, you know, that as part of their culture. Not bad, not evil, just how they express themselves. And it soon, you know, becomes a fixture at places that aren't worshipping. They're at taverns and, you know, celebrations and, you know, it's merrymaking. It's fun. It's, you know, it's that sort of thing. And that's condemned. It's not what you would want from a church. You're not in control of that, I suppose. So the church condemned it.
Yeah, that's right. And there's also they took it once, you know, there's also, you know, the carnal aspect of dance, you know, the closeness of it and stuff like that, which was also heavily frowned upon.
I bet they'd field day at some of the dances you see nowadays.
Oh my God, could you imagine if you brought somebody from the 15th, 16th, 17th century forward? Even a Victorian period.
Yeah.
Bringing them into modern day, they'd be like totally freaked out.
Of course they would.
Whereas I think, to be fair, if you took us back to that time, firstly, I don't even know if we'd be able to understand them. But secondly, throwing your pot from underneath your bed outside the window into the street, you'd be like, that's disgusting. Just that bit is disgusting. You know, like, oh, no. Really wouldn't be the done thing, would it? I can't get any Wi-Fi on my phone.
No, but you could invent all that stuff to make your life easier, couldn't you?
I couldn't invent it now, let alone like going back then, even if I knew it could exist in the future. There is a thing called electricity, everybody. I don't know how it gets done, but I'm telling you now, there is a thing.
There is a thing. Don't worry. Just bear with us.
Yeah, bear with, and it'll come. Oh dear. Anyway. So this is why that becomes that evil personification is put onto the violin. It's because it encourages frivolousness and sinfulness and dancing. Rah.
Yes.
Oh dear.
I don't think my dancing encourages frivolousness. A lot of laughing, but that's about it.
A lot of laugh. Well, yeah.
I bet you do the dad dancing, didn't you?
Oh, I've got that down to a T.
Yeah.
But mind you, back in the day, I could turn it on the dance floor with my white suit and my shades.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that just
Saturday
conjures up an image. Richard trying to do John Travolta on the dance floor. Jeepers. Yeah. Oh my God. I bet you had the swagger walk and everything.
Shirt open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for the encouragement there. Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, I thought people down Dukes thought that back then, and perhaps they did.
Yeah, you was all in the same thing. You was all at the same time and watching the same things, had the same influences. So you would have been all right back then, Rich.
Yeah, you had to be there, really.
Yeah, you had to be in the time frame. It's like when I was wearing all my glow bands and leg warmers and stuff and going to raves, teeny boppers in my hair. I mean, come on now.
Oh, yeah. You didn't have padded shoulders, did you, and the frizzy hair?
At one point, yeah, I've gone through many reincarnations in my life, and you haven't seen me when I went through my Madonna phase.
Oh,
in the Vogue years.
Anyway.
Kind of went off topic there. Yeah, that all have been viewed as very evil and very bad and very anti-religious, but not a violin in sight. Anyway, so is there any proof? Is there any proof that the devil exists? Well, some people say there is. We have had many accounts, or we came across many accounts where the devil has left his weird footprints.
Oh, yes.
We have.
The devil's footprints.
Back in 1855, wasn't it?
It was, Paul. Carry on.
Yeah, apparently mysterious footprints appeared all over southeast Devon, or south and east Devon. Hoof marks were reported to be around 4 inches long and 3 inches deep, and 3 inches across, and 16 inches apart. And they were in single file as well. And many people thought that it was the footprints of the devil. Yeah.
Yeah, the odd thing about this story is that they were actually tracked over, unbroken apparently, for up to sort of 50 to 100 miles in some reports. And it is sort of quite an odd story because they'd be on rooftops, so it's like walking in a straight line, and then you'd come to a farm property or even a haystack, and the footprints would continue up. Well, I don't think up over the house, but certainly on the roof, and then continue the other side. You know, and this stretched on across, the whole of the West Country, or as far down as Devon, which it certainly is an odd story, and I've come across it a few times.
I've seen it in a few books as well. I don't really know too much about it, but Obviously, thanks to Kerry's research, he even found a newspaper report. If you want to read that, Kerry, for us.
Yes, I can read that for you. It appears on Thursday night last there was a heavy snowfall in the neighbourhood of Exeter and the south of Devon. On the following morning, the inhabitants of the above towns were surprised at discovering the footmarks of some strange and mysterious animal endowed with the power of ubiquity, as the footprints were to be seen in all kinds of unaccountable places, on the tops of houses, narrow walls, in gardens and courtyards, enclosed by high walls and palings, as well as in open fields. Now, the winter at that time was particularly cold, right?
Yeah.
The temperatures remained around freezing from January until March, so it's a long, extended cold period. The temperatures didn't allow the snow to melt, so every new snowfall just added a new layer over the terrain. So is it the conditions that played a part in this?
Certainly they were certainly noted at the time, because of the fact it is noted that there was a prolonged sort of winter, sort of cold spell. So for that to be documented, I don't think you can discount that.
But then how would that create footprints?
No,
I don't know.
Like that.
I don't know. That's the bit I don't know. But there's
because I mean,
at least
if you said it was just in a garden and then on the roof, you could probably put that down to a coincidence.
Yeah.
Well, yes, because it wouldn't have been reported. The reason this was reported was because it was particularly odd. It obviously was noteworthy for it to enter into the newspapers, which it did.
Well, it was actually investigated by Reverend H.D. Ellacombe, who was the vicar of Christ St. George in the 1850s. He was the one who investigated it.
Mm-hmm.
The first-hand evidence of this is incredibly rare. I will say this.
Yeah.
Now, he looked into this. He wrote personal letters. He did some tracings of footprints. And he did write the letter to the Illustrated London News, but marked it not for publication. Now, in one of the letters, it says the marks which appeared on the snow, which lay very thinly on the ground at the time, and which were seen on Friday morning to all appearances, were the perfect impression of a donkey hoof.
Mm-hmm.
The length, 4 inches by 2 3/4 inches. But instead of progressing as that animal would have done, or indeed as any other would have done, foot right and left, it appeared that foot had followed foot in a single line. See, this is what makes it strange, right?
I don't know. I thought all
don't-
four-legged animals went forward like that. They always, and their rear feet always go into the previous two front feet. I thought that was a thing.
It's never a single line, though, Richard.
No,
Oh,
but
right.
if an animal like a horse, for example, is walking, then the two legs either side walking.
Yeah.
with each
Oh,
other.
okay.
But when they're running, when they run, they push with their back legs and land on their front legs.
Mm.
So that could be an explanation for if it was a donkey or something.
But no, it says it appeared that the foot had followed foot in a single line, the distance from each tread being 8 inches. The footmarks in every parish being exactly the same size and the same steps, the same length.
Do we know what part of the year this was? Was this like Christmas?
No.
'Cause it could have been Santa with his reindeers.
That's 8th
Well,
of
yeah.
February, 1855.
Maybe it was just he had a few left in his, a few gifts left in his sack and he forgot.
It did
And maybe
actually,
just pop back with his reindeers,
it did actually create quite a stir at the time, because people did believe it, because they couldn't find an explanation for it. They did believe it was the devil, basically, and stayed at home after dark. They didn't go out after midnight.
But then I think because he's a reverend, maybe that's had the religious connotation to it, and that's why he jumped to that conclusion that it could have been the devil, or other people jumped to that conclusion because
It's
been investigated.
noteworthy that he sent his correspondence to the London Illustrated News, but it wasn't published. I mean, these letters only come to light relatively recently, didn't they?
Yeah.
So it's sort of it can sound to me. It sounds like a story again that was probably partly true back at the time and was generally noted, but then picked up again a lot later on and embellished.
And how
can you embellish? That's quoted. That was quoted from his letter. That's not embellished. That's quoted from a letter he wrote. So that's not an embellished tale. That's what he has investigated himself.
I was wondering whether or not the footprints on the roofs were the same footprints on the ground.
Yeah, they were. Single
That's
file.
an interesting one.
It is incredibly interesting. Now, there are various explanations for this. One of the most agreed upon is Devonport Dockyard had released an experimental balloon by mistake, and it had travelled across the area trailing its mooring shackles.
I can see parts of that, you know, if a helium balloon sort of just going along at a certain height with a long chain attached, and the chain just bouncing along the ground.
The rise and fall.
Just and that could become pretty rhythmic, especially at the time of year. If it was a very still sort of winter, you know, not too sort of windy and stuff, and this happened at the dead of night where the atmospheric pressures were possibly different and able to sustain a balloon at a steady altitude as it drifted across the terrain. Yeah, it makes sense.
However, there are people that disagree with this theory and say that the balloon would have travelled such a random course, and also suggested that it would have been a near miracle for the hanging chains not to have become fouled up in a tree or some other obstruction. I would say it's a possibility. I mean, God, it is possible that could have happened. And
I can understand it being on the ground and doing that. But when it comes to the roof, surely the chains would have dragged along the roof.
Well, yeah, there's that aspect to it.
I don't buy that.
Doesn't explain how they went up the side of a house either.
No.
The most bizarre explanation for this is that a kangaroo had escaped from a private zoo near Sidmouth.
Skippy. It's all Skippy's fault.
But they've got 2 feet, haven't they? Not one.
Yeah.
And I don't believe they're hooved.
They can probably be... Well, it all depends. Yeah, they're sort of elongated, aren't they? Kangaroo's feet.
Maybe he's just wearing slippers.
Yeah.
There he was.
But they can jump a height, a kangaroo.
Yeah, but they can't go up sides of buildings, and they don't leave one single track.
No.
And also, they use their tail as a rudder, so you wouldn't have just had footprints, you would have had a rudder mark as well.
Yeah.
Badger tracks has been suggested as well, that they were a badger track, as badgers place its back feet in the same tracks left by its front, therefore explaining the tracks were bipedal. Rather than 4 feet.
A roaming badger, yeah.
But again, that doesn't explain roofs of houses or upsides of buildings. I don't want to meet that badger if it walks up the side of a building. Good God.
See, when this reverend investigated, the only way they would have known the footprints were on tops of buildings is for them to actually go up. I'm wondering if that bit is embellished.
I don't know. Now, that's the biggest problem, isn't it? Is when it was, they weren't photographed. So the prints themselves are only got an explanation. Yeah, and a rough drawing that the Reverend did of them.
Yeah.
It gives them the hoof mark.
Yeah.
As for, whether or not it went on rooftops, upsides of buildings, things like that.
I think that is sort of perhaps a bit of license there, if anything.
Possibly, I don't know.
Because I don't know what's on the roof of my house, my flat at the moment.
No, but but back in them days, the houses weren't as high like yours. You've got to remember back in the day of when this was, you didn't have multi-storey houses, or in fact, a lot of houses back then weren't even double-storey. They were strictly for the gentry. Most people had cottages.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And the newspaper, yes, okay, so the newspaper report does say unaccountable places on the tops of houses and narrow walls, in gardens and courtyards, enclosed by high walls and palings. So it, maybe they did take artistic license with the account.
If these were in like one continuous straight line, like has been suggested, could it be a very sort of narrow, sort of like a atmospheric condition moving along, like a sort of some form of tornado or something just going along,
like a weather band?
Yeah, a very small weather band, which does happen. That cut across the swathe of the countryside and left this particular odd marking. Quite how this marking was left, I don't know. But
well, the scientific explanation has been put forward that the way the rain fell and then froze may have actually created the effect, but it hasn't been able to have been recreated.
No.
In all honesty. So who knows? It could be a completely logical explanation that just seems bizarre at the time. It could just be something logical. I would rule out animal, in all honesty, purely simply for the distance that this was supposed to have been.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you take out the media version of it on top of roofs and behind palings and high walls, even if you put it just in a natural environment, it's unlikely that an animal would have travelled that distance.
Yeah, overnight.
Unlikely. It may well be an atmospheric reason, just because they haven't been able to recreate it. There are many things that have to have very, very specific conditions to actually create that. Some cloud formations only occur very, very rarely, only down to certain atmospheric conditions. And it could be something to do with the length of time the ground was frozen. That seems to make more logical sense to me.
Yeah, you sort of get that, don't you? Yeah, you can get it. It sort of just does make more sense. And what are your feelings on the balloon?
I think it's unlikely. I think if anything was trailing, I'm with Paul on this one. I think if something was trailing, you'd have either drag marks from the ropes or whatever, or it would have got entangled. I think that's unlikely.
Yeah.
I'm with Paul on that one. I'm more likely to believe the scientific explanation. I know it hasn't been able to have been recreated, but then neither of the others, so it just seems more logical to me. I don't think the devil transfers to the highlands of Devon, do you know what I mean, in the middle of the night. That's one thing I don't believe.
If you imagine, like, these days, if a balloon was dragging the shackles along the road, they would bounce, along the road, and then when the house became in the way, you'd have the balloon obviously going to be above the roof, isn't it? Drifting away still. So you'd have the chain would literally be sloping along the roof, wouldn't it?
Dragging, you mean?
Yeah. So it'd be sloping up along the roof, and the shackles would be going up the side of the wall. And they might be swinging to create side things, but you'd still have the chain touching the roof.
No,
Whether
I'm with you.
Bottom or the whole roof, it depends on the angle of the balloon. But I can't see that.
I just can't see in my head working that way. It just doesn't seem logical to me.
No.
But we weren't there. We didn't witness it. So, we've got the first-hand account by the Reverend, but then we have got the newspaper that sort of maybe put a bit more of a weirder twist to it. Who knows? On that one. But in 2009, nearly 154 years to the day, Mrs. Wade, a local retired government officer, looked out of her bedroom window to see footprints stretching across her garden. She says they stretched from 60 to 70 feet across her garden in an arch shape running below her window to the other side of her garden. She said, "I looked in the garden and it really intrigued me. It was a complete blanket of snow. There were no other marks in the snow at all. And she saw footprints that were in the shape of a cloven hoof." She could not account for the footprints and called into the nearby Centre for Fortean Zoology.
Mm-hmm.
They immediately dispatched a zoologist, Mr. Graham Inglis, to look at the footprints. They were around 5 inches long, with a stride of between 11 and 17 inches. They were recognised as clearly defined tracks, and because of the description, they've equated them as the same as those that appeared in South Devon in 1855, right?
Right.
So it became known as the Great Devon Mystery.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, Graham Inglis is actually a biologist, stated, "This is certainly a first for me. The footprints are peculiar, but they are not the devil's. I don't believe the horned one has been to Woolsey, or wherever that is. Personally, I think it belongs to a rabbit or hare, but quite an academic punch-up has started over it." He can't explain it, doesn't know what it is, nothing he's come across before, but he's pretty damn sure it weren't the devil. And on this occasion, it was only in her garden.
Yeah.
Not the length of expanse the 1855 version was.
Mm-hmm.
So, who knows? Even an academic biologist who's seen something similar firsthand, can't explain it, doesn't mean it's the devil.
No.
Pretty much makes you assume there is a logical explanation. We just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, plus footprints in the snow and stuff, I mean, they can sort of change and deteriorate quite quickly. And after they've been made, you think sort of if they're made sort of late night, early morning, and by sort of like the early morning when you get up and go out, you know, the snow could have contracted, expanded, or stuff like that. So I don't think you could sort of put it down to any particular animal, because it might not be recognisable at all, you know, by them.
It's not the only time this has happened.
Hmm.
We have another account that comes to us from 1840 on the remote Kerguelen Islands in the South Indian Ocean. Now, these oh gosh, horrible places. It just sounds horrible. Yeah. Windswept, rocky, frozen, treeless, surrounded by horrible water, you know, rough, grey waters. They're 3,300 kilometres away from the nearest traces of civilization. They're very isolated, this place. In fact, their nickname is the Île de la Desolation, the Desolation Islands.
Ooh.
The only plant life is lichens, mosses, grasses, and there are a few insects, seals, seabirds and penguins, maybe feral cats, rabbits, maybe sheep over the years.
Yeah.
So Captain James Ross found himself on this island.
As you do.
As you do. He was actually on an expedition to catalogue the plant and animal life of the island, the main part of the island being the Grand Terror. The island was mostly described as a barren, lifeless waste of sparse lichens and moss with no land animals seen at all. And at the time, there was no introduction of large land animals. So you've got very minimal life on this island. It's desolate. It's in the middle of nowhere. Right? They came across an odd sight. Snow-swept land, a fresh line of horseshoe-shaped, hoof-like tracks measuring 3 inches long and 2.5 inches wide, meandered across the snow and then disappeared at a rocky area.
Right. Yeah, this is the first time you sort of got prints that have actually been described as something recognisable, though, isn't it? Oh. They are described as technically horse prints or donkey prints of some sort, aren't they?
Horseshoe-shaped, hoof-like tracks.
Yeah, sort of recognisable to some form of sort of animal we might recognise.
However, Lieutenant Bird speculated that a horse, pony or donkey had been left there by previous expedition or had made it on the island from a wrecked ship. But it's considered that a horse would have died in the Arctic conditions on its own if it was a castaway. So there must have been a skeleton or other signs that it had been there. There would have been something to indicate that, right? But they couldn't find anything. That doesn't mean... That
Unless
doesn't mean
when
it
it died,
wasn't.
it was in the water.
Yeah, well, it doesn't mean, yeah, and as you say, Kerry, it doesn't mean it wasn't there. It's just it could have been there, but they just didn't find it.
Exactly. Or, if it happened, you've got to remember this is in snowfall as well.
Yeah.
So, relatively recent, I would say.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say like a full-blown sort of like racehorse, but certainly back in the day, they would have, I mean, these sort of expedition ships and stuff would have carried a lot of sort of livestock and stuff with them, for various things. And it's not out of the realms of possibility that another ship had actually visited not long before they got there, and may have offloaded some of their livestock, especially ponies. I mean, they're quite hardy animals, and they can survive in quite adverse conditions.
Kind of think he might have seen it though.
Yeah, but
I don't know. I'm just throwing devil's advocate on that one. I don't know.
Yeah, but if you don't see something, it doesn't mean it's not there.
True.
You look at sort of like Exmoor and Dartmoor, and you look at the ponies on there. I mean, those are very inhospitable places, and I should imagine it's not a far stretch of the imagination to say that perhaps a pony was left on the island at some point.
Yeah.
And they can eat.
That island, though, it's 300 kilometres from the nearest, civilization.
Yeah. As I said, it could have alighted from a passing ship. They could have, another sort of ship could have just come across, and they probably went on to get some water, brought some of their pack animals on shore to help transport the water, from inland to the coast to get back onto the ship, and perhaps they left one of the draft animals behind.
Footprints in the snow, Richard. It's got to have been pretty recent. So it's either going to have been alive, or there'll be a carcass if it was like something that gone off a shipwreck. Mm-hmm. No sign of a shipwreck in the vicinity at all. Not that says a lot, to be fair, because not all shipwrecks are like on the on the beach, as it were. But you would have seen. I would have thought the time span of footprints in the snow. You would have seen some other evidence of a horse or a pony.
Yeah,
I would have thought so, but they didn't, and that's why it's weird.
Maybe. I mean, what sea was it? This island in?
Indian Ocean, the southern Indian Ocean.
So it could also be possible then the horse was walking along, making his footprints in snow, because we all like doing that, and then thought, I'm really thirsty, I'm going to drink some seawater. So found the seawater, and a big shark took him.
The Megalodon came along, or maybe Ollie the Octopus came along.
Yeah.
Or Ollie the Octopus.
Ollie the Octopus. Well, there you go. Again, seems very coincidental. Could possibly be the rational explanation.
Exactly.
You never know. However,
prove me wrong.
In 1945, near Everberg in Belgium, in January the 10th, a curious set of bizarre prints were found etched in this. There's a common theme here, everybody, by the way. Snow. More snow. On a hill behind a place called the Chateau de Morveau. The hoof, even, like prints, measured 2.5 inches long by 1.5 inches wide, and were composed of a series of pair of two prints 9 inches apart that formed a perfect single file line. So at least we've got two, we've got that. Yeah. 12 to 15 inches apart. So whatever made them had been hopping along. They wandered for several miles across hillsides, forest, fields and a stream, and strangely they went right over some deep snowdrifts, yet there was no sign of any animal body sinking within the snow. Only these odd footprints perched atop the frozen snow. Locals in the area had never seen anything like it. Now, Eric Van Russell was the gentleman that investigated these prints. He specifically said that they were very reminiscent of the Devil's footprints of Devon in 1855, although some have theorised that the tracks were made by a goat.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you not think they would have sunk in a bit further if they were a goat?
I don't know.
I don't know the what what the displacement of a goat is. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Strange but true.
strange but true.
But then if the footprints do tie in with a goat, then it was a goat at the end of the day.
Well, it's theorised they were made by a goat, which are common in the area, but they haven't been satisfactorily, whatever the word is, explained, because an animal body would have caused more sinking within the snow, and these are perched atop the frozen snow, not sunk in. So who knows? It could be a goat, it could be something else.
Maybe
I
it was just a bird wearing his new goatskin boots.
It could be.
With the elongation of the prints, I mean, you know, but rabbit sort of prints would be more recognisable. You know, they probably have some underlying drag as well, wouldn't they, on it, some scuffing.
And they haven't got cloven hooves. I mean, you're missing a big point of this. All right, so goats do, and deer do as well, you know.
Yeah,
but
muntjacs everywhere.
Yeah, all right. But rabbits, badgers, foxes haven't got cloven hooves.
No, they've got paws, haven't they?
And wait,
Paws, yeah.
And wait, you know, a muntjac, a deer, you know, all those kind of animals would be sinking deeper into the snow. You wouldn't just have a footprint, you'd have like a leg print. Because don't forget, even on snowdrifts, they're not sinking in.
No.
We're not talking like a thin smattering of snow here. In this one, we're talking like deeper snow. And the locals had never seen anything like it. If, you know, generally the local populace would go, that be deer, that be. Seen that 100 times before. And they were like, never seen anything like it before. And that's what makes it strange.
Yes.
Not saying it's the devil. I'm pretty damn sure there's a good explanation for it.
Yeah, it's just trying to sort of like work it out. Yeah, I mean, and these sorts of, I say we'll probably never know unless it does happen again, and it can be well documented this time.
Unfortunately, all these things seem to happen when we haven't got the technology to actually investigate it properly, really. That does seem to be the unfortunate one. But he is not just about leaving his footprints in snow. He actually likes to leave his footprint within structures as well. In the Cathedral of Our Lady in Munich, in Germany, I'm not even going to attempt to say the German version of that. The church was actually constructed between 1468 and 1488 with a very famous architect, Georg von Hausbach, at the helm. It's very iconic. Very iconic. There's a footprint found near its entrance, which is alleged to belong to the devil. The legend says that building the cathedral had some serious funding problems, and in order to finish it, the architect ended up making a deal with the devil in exchange for finishing the construction of the church. Why would the devil want to do that is beyond me to start with, but, you know. But the devil...
he can harvest the soul easily, isn't it? Because that's what it's all about, you know, and if the devil has a guaranteed soul, he's laughing, and he'll do anything to get that.
Apparently so. Well, the devil had conditions, as he always likes to put condition in. He said that it must not contain any windows, so no light would find its way into the structure. Once it was complete, the devil came along, had a little check to see if that George had actually fulfilled his promise, but he found out that several windows had still been built. The devil was very angry about this.
Oh,
very
furious.
angry. Stamped his little foot, leaving an impression in the tile, and the black footprint can still be viewed inside the cathedral today, and is actually a very popular tourist attraction.
Like it would be, yeah. Those types of stories, yeah, I've come across them, you know, especially in churches, you know, you either get the devil's footprint somewhere or the devil's handprint or things like that. We've even got a few, I believe, around this part of the world as well. So, yeah, there's always this sort of story connected with some monastic and religious buildings.
Well, the devil is always fighting against the forces of good, because that is the nature of good and evil, right? So, of course, he'd lose his temper and stamp. If he's that powerful, you'd think, well, one breath would just knock the cathedral down. He'd be able to click his little hoofed hand and, undo all the good that he did.
Exactly. Or even stabbed his foot and it all fell down.
Yeah, not just leave a little footprint in the tile.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still standing today, everybody.
Yeah, you can go and see it.
Exactly. To be fair, I don't know what happened to the architect after that.
No, he probably got a bit upset or something, yeah. He probably made a quick exit stage left. When the devil got a bit angry. Well, I'm out of here. Never to be seen or heard of again.
But his cathedral still stands to this day, so it's all good, right? Oh, dear. Now, Paul, would you like to have a go at the next one?
No, not really, because I've lost it in the research.
Okay, so
whereabouts are we? The Devil's Tramping Ground.
No, we're on a set of fossilised footprints.
Oh, okay, the one before. That they were found in North Manchester.
Okay, on that one.
Obviously in US, it was Maine. This building, the house was built in 1793, and it was a meeting house for the town. So it was made up of a church and cemetery, and they had like semi-famous rocks containing impressions of what's believed to be the devil's footprints. And according to legend, a group of workers were busy while building one of the new roads, and they found a rock that they couldn't move. They did everything they could to try and move it, but it was just too heavy for them. And one worker decided to appeal to the devil and offered to relinquish his soul in exchange for moving the rock. The following day, the workers found that the rock had already been moved away by a few yards from its original location. And there was something different about the rock because it bore imprints of what looked like human footprints and a cloven hoof. As for the man that sold his soul to the devil, no one supposedly seen or heard from him ever since.
Oh dear, yeah.
Sold the devil for his employees' sake.
Yeah, that was a quick turnaround, that one, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He ain't wasting no more time. He's getting on with things. He's learned his lessons to the devil from previous encounters with humans, and he's decided he ain't going to give him a chance. Why would you sell your soul to the devil to move a rock for somebody else?
Well, I think I was going to say. I mean, you know, as a business owner, you want employees like that would do every step to get the job done. You know.
Don't give them ideas. My employee might have ideas. I want you all to sell your soul to the devil to get more sales in the till, please.
Yeah. You want people like that, but I mean, to make him disappear like that, that's just a bit off.
Wow.
That's got to be like the devil going, well, yeah, I'll move the rock for you, you lazy git, and I'll have your soul tonight.
Maybe what it did was he stayed on after the shift had ended. They all went off, and he thought, no, I'm not going to let this rock beat me.
Yeah.
He managed to get it tipped over, but it ended up underneath the rock. Has anybody actually looked underneath the rock?
Probably not.
No, because they can't move it, obviously.
Well, it's been moved, so, you know, kind of suggests that. Again, it's a lovely tale, isn't it? These are the links you should go to for your employer. It's beyond me, these tales that creep up. It's funny, isn't it? Oh, dear. But this is in rock now. It's gone from snow to rock, and a set of fossilised footprints have been found near Campania in Italy. Sometime in the late 18th century, the locals discovered the ancient foot tracks. And they say that it was the devil had surfaced from hell through the volcano's crater and once roamed the earth. So much so, they dubbed it the Chiampata del Diavolo.
Yeah, I've actually seen photographs of these. These are online. There's actually photographic evidence of these, you know, because they still exist and to this day. And they are definitely prints of some sort and possibly human, but the odd thing is they would have had to be made in hot volcanic ash at the time, which that is the odd thing about it. You know, any sort of animal or ancient human at the time, sort of walking across it is a bit, it's a bit far-fetched, because they would have burnt their feet.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
They've got big furry feet, haven't they? So it would have given them some insulation against the heat of the volcanic ash.
And if it was a devil, we'd be used to the heat anyway.
Well, yeah. There you go,
Well,
Paul.
true,
Well
yeah.
done.
And perhaps this one we can attribute to Beelzebubbles.
Maybe we can. Oh, dear. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not so sure on that one.
But footprints have been found outside of Africa. 800,000-year-old Happisburg footprints in England were found back in 2013.
Right. What's that? Fossilised?
Fossilised footprints, yeah, they're found.
Yeah, I mean, there's those famous ones in, I believe it's America, Utah or somewhere, which is quite controversial. There's a set of dinosaur tracks with a set of human tracks beside them.
I thought that was proved to be fake.
Yeah, probably is now, but they are quite, sort of, they're not that uncommon.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm not a geological expert. I kind of sometimes think that it's just geological movements and stuff that's caused it.
Well, yeah.
And it just looks like a footprint. And people go, oh, it's a footprint. But it's not. I mean,
it seems to happen a lot, though, for that, doesn't it?
Well, that makes you suggest that, doesn't that then suggest then that it is something more logical? If it's happening a lot, then there's obviously a force at work to make it happen.
Yeah.
But it certainly ain't going to be the devil, is it?
No,
I'll say that. It'll probably turn up on my doorstep next week. Excuse me, I am real.
I would have thought it'd be man-made. I would, yeah.
Particularly, there's a couple of sets in Ireland, but they're only like single sort of like outlines of footprints. But these are more put down, which are carved into rock or sort of hewn into rock, and these are more put down to ancient initiation rites of kingship and stuff like that. But these sort of impressions have got stories over the years which have been associated with the devil and stuff. So, yeah.
I don't know. Well, let's have a look at the Devil's Tramping Ground. He doesn't have just footprints, he's got a whole tramping ground in North Carolina. It's a popular...
That's his local hangout.
Is that his local hangout, do you reckon?
Yeah, definitely.
Right, well, if we want to go and have a barbecue with him, then that's where we need to be, clearly. It's a popular camping spot that has been the subject of many legends and folklore. Allegedly, it's a 40-foot circular and barren patch of land, which is where the devil comes to have a dance.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
The legend dates back to 1882, and it says that nothing will ever grow there and no animal would ever dare to cross it. Locals also believe that if you leave a heavy object in the centre of this area, the item will get thrown out of the circle the following day because the devil wants to make room for his dancing. Now, guys, isn't there a forest clearing? Isn't it in... Oh, God, where's that? It's in Transylvania or something like that. That's supposed to be the same sort of thing.
I don't know. I haven't heard of anywhere. You get forest clearings, don't you? Dells and stuff like that always have these sort of magical type sort of associations attached to them. But no, I don't think I've heard of one in Transylvania, but I'll take your word for it.
Sure, I've heard about that. And there's supposed to be UFOs, so weird things are supposed to happen there. And this is the same sort of thing as this place in North Carolina, where, weird sounds are heard, weird electromagnetic fields are found. And it's actually more put down to UFO in that way, whereas the legend in this area has been built up around being the Devil's Tramping Ground. So it's the same sort of thing, but in a different location. Do you know what I mean?
See, as for the rocks moving, I was reading the other day about the rocks that would travel across the desert.
That's to do with that's been explained though.
Yeah, that was winds, they reckon.
Moisture as well.
Moisture and the winds. Maybe that's the sort of thing that could explain why those rocks were moved as well. Rather than having them thrown out, they were just pushed by the winds.
But
so
in a forest dell?
No, because it's the Devil's Tramping ground isn't in a woods, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's in a barren area of woods.
But isn't there some sort of
maybe it's a natural occurrence?
That's what I was thinking, Kerry, because you think about it, round sort of bare patches are not that uncommon, are they? You get sort of like fungi can grow in rings, can't it? And stuff like that. Sort of I think they call them fairy rings or something. And there's an area in Argentina which is a large area of pampas grass, and that is dotted with just perfectly circular round bare patches all over it, and that's put down to like fungal sort of spores and stuff and causing that. And perhaps the UFO activity and stuff aside, and leaving that sort of stuff aside, which could be just added on later, just to give an air of mystery to the place, couldn't this be sort of just a natural occurring sort of fungal infection type thing?
The wood's got a fungal infection, everybody.
Well, no, that would make sense.
Because nature does have a habit of, straight edges are very sort of like, they say straight edges you should be suspicious of because they're not natural. Round sort of stuff is sort of natural in nature. They do happen.
I don't know. I can't argue it. I don't know, do I?
That's
possible, isn't it? Sort of thinking.
So if you live near one of these circles, if you go out with fungal cream, you can cure it.
Okay.
Test that theory out.
I'm thinking of going to Rendlesham Forest soon. I'll keep an eye out for it.
Take some fungal cream with you.
Yeah.
The one I know I was thinking about in Romania, I had a quick little search for it because I know it's real and I couldn't bloody think of the name of it. And the reason I couldn't think of the name of it is because I can't pronounce it. It's the Hoya Baku forest in Romania.
Yeah.
And this is in 1968.
Does the place still exist? Is it still there, or is it?
Yeah.
And is it a perfectly round sort of?
Yeah, there's a perfectly round clearing, and there's people are supposed to disappear. It's very similar to what the Carolina place is supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's very similar. Have a look at it.
Oh, we'll do later, yeah.
Go and have a little look at it. Because it is very interesting because, I know a lot of folklore and you've got kids going out there and it's like the thing that Halloween you've got to go to the local church and run around it 5 times, and I suppose in that area it's built up through that. Oh yeah, we went and stayed out there and we saw red eyes in the forest, or we went out there and stayed there and we did a ritual and then we saw screaming coming from it. Could have been a grouse or a bird.
No, that's not what you're supposed to do on Halloween. On Halloween you're supposed to come to my events.
Of course you are.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Or waking up several miles away from where you actually pitched your tent. So there is a local urban legend that grows up about that. It's not true. It's not based on legend. It's told stories told to each other to freak yourself out when you go out and do something like this, right? So that's what this sounds like to me.
It's like any glade in the wood. They do tend to attract sort of like these sort of like stories. I mean, the classic is how many different stories are there, Kerry, of the even though it's sort of circular, the impression in Claphamwood we visited. It's everything, isn't it? Clay pit, you name it, bomb crater it's been put down to.
Yeah, it's all sorts of things. Yeah, all sorts of things.
A wolf pit,
There's one in Epping Forest as well. That's got witch tales associated with it, and tales of like wolf pits, and God knows what else that's been associated to it. You do get them, and I do think it is a question of is probably, like you say, perfectly natural explanation for why there is a ring of barrenness in a forest, like fungi or whatever. But couple that with the local, the local kids, teenage kids looking for a cheap thrill on a Saturday night, go camping in the woods, let's go camping there because it's got the witch that haunts it, or it's UFO, or it's this, or it's that. I mean, North Carolina just happens to be the devil's stomping ground. Do you know what I mean? You can understand how it builds up, don't you?
Yeah.
Rural legends. Gotta love a rural legend.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's good looking into those sort of legends and stuff and finding out the origins and
Well, it's certainly something, that sort of drives us all, though, really, doesn't it, into sort of like pursuing what we do. I think a lot of it is to do with legends and stuff, and these sort of places are interesting to investigate on that aspect alone, which I think a lot of people forget about. They sort of seem to want to go and chase the tangible, the stuff they can actually sort of feel and see. But, there's a lot to be sort of had and sort of seen if you look into the legends of the places, and they are fascinating.
To play devil's advocate, I would just like to point out this has been looked at, it has been investigated by a soil scientist, by no less, in this particular area. He collected the data, theorising that there was some natural cause, right?
Yeah.
As we've just said. He compared soil from inside the circle to soil from outside, and he was specifically looking at the salt and copper content of the soil, because large amounts of either of those will kill plants, right? What we found out here last time was that we had some elevated readings of certain things inside, but none of those readings showed us that plants couldn't live here. In fact, what they found out raised more questions than they answered. The soil in the circle actually has a higher sodium, copper, zinc and pH level than the soil from the woods a few yards away, but none of it was drastic enough to make the soil toxic. Certain points in the circle, a compass will skew by about 5 degrees. That's not particularly strange. Compasses can do that around a high iron content, but the soil does not have iron in its content.
Perhaps sort of it does have some sort of content in it that makes the vegetation that grows there more appealing for animals to eat, and perhaps overgrazing in a certain area could cause it.
I don't know, but these kind of specialists have a look at these things and can't come up with an explanation. Don't mean to say there isn't one, it just means that they haven't found it yet.
And these guys are the experts, aren't they, in the fields?
Yeah. And they're not
maybe
looking
it takes
for...
a few. Maybe it takes a few experienced people to go and look. I mean, you said that guy was a soil specialist, but then if a geologist went as well, and maybe someone who studied animals, and so they could all sit around the table and think, okay, well, this is what I found. This is what I found. Let's come up with an explanation for this.
Yeah, it'll take people to get together, but at the end of the day, it's just a local clearing in a sort of like an isolated area, and it's not really of interest, I suppose, to scientists and stuff. It's just it's of interest. The folklore interest is sort of prevalent, but to probably study it properly would take quite a high level of money to actually do it. And
if that's your job, though, which it is this guy's job.
Yeah, but would anywhere be prepared to fund it?
You're very cynical, Richard, is all I'm saying. Very cynical. We've got a soil specialist investigating this particular case with facts on data, and you're still going, oh, who would fund that? It's not real, is it? Anyway, on that note, we have actually come to the end of the show. Whether or not you believe the devil is real is purely a point of self-belief, or not self-belief, belief system. We have detailed some weird and wonderful tales for you in this show, and some very strange maybe natural, maybe not phenomena that has been out there. I don't know what to make of some of them. I don't think the boys do either. They can argue around the point as much as they like, but I don't think they do either.
I'm actually surprised they haven't dug it up and put a spa there to make it keep with.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, the natural healing waters.
Anyway, on that note, oh dear. On that note, say good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
For businesses around the world, today isn't a restart, it's a rethink. That's why they're partnering with IBM. Retailers are keeping their systems up as millions of orders move online. Call centers are using IBM Watson to manage customer questions with AI. And solutions built on the IBM cloud are helping patients receive trusted information. Today we're rethinking how business moves forwards. Let's put smart to work. Visit ibm.com/smart/UK to learn more.